Federal criminal defense lawyer Ryan Pacyga here, and today I wanted to talk to you about what's called a PSR interview and how that process works in federal court. So, here's what happens in federal court if you either plead guilty later in your case or if you go to trial and you're found guilty. If you plead guilty or are found guilty, a judge is going to order a pre-sentence report to be done. And what that means is this. The judge is going to order you to get together with a probation agent, and that probation agent is going to interview you for anywhere from 45 minutes on the short end to about, I think the longest one I've ever had is like 3.5 hours long, but usually about an hour or two long, okay? And your lawyer can and should come to that interview with you, okay? And in that interview, the probation officer's job is to learn more about your life and document it and get documents that corroborate what you're telling them so that they can put a long report together. Sometimes these are 25 to 35 pages long even, detailing your whole life history to a judge so that the judge can read about who you are as a person, not just the case. It will talk about the case, but in addition to that, who you are as a person, so the judge has a better idea of that before they sentence you, okay? And so some parts of this interview, your lawyer ought to prepare you for the interview. That's tip number one. Make sure that your lawyer's preparing you for that interview so you don't go in blind to this, because there are some things that make a difference in this interview and could affect how you're sentenced in a case, okay, or which type of prison you're sent to or those sorts of things. So these are important things to be prepared for, okay? Now, some of it's what I call black and white. In other words, you don't need preparation for such as this. They're going to ask you in this interview, the probation agent, and by the way, some of these are done in person, some of them are done over Zoom, and some are done in the jail if you're in custody, okay? They're going to start oftentimes with biographical information. Where were you born? What's your date of birth? Who are your parents? What are their names? How old are they? Who are your siblings? What are their names? How old are they now? Okay. What was your home life like growing up? Was there any trauma? Was it a good marriage if your parents were married or if they were in a relationship? Was there domestic violence in the home? Did they get along good? What was your free time spent like doing in the home? Did you do certain activities? How's your relationships with your siblings? Are they all still alive? Any traumatic events that you remember, from domestic abuse to the home had a fire in it, to there was my dad or mom was an alcoholic or a drug user, or any of these sorts of things. A lot of truancies from school, or there was no discipline in the home, it was unstructured, or my dad was in prison and mom was a single mom that was working, so I was basically raised by my oldest sister, just things like that, right? What was home life like? And then they're going to ask you at some point what are called ACEs questions, which is a scored questionnaire. It's 10 questions long. It's just to identify prior traumas or other things that to inform the judge about that you've been through, if you have. You don't have to answer those questions, but a lot of times they can be helpful for telling a client's story later on as well. They'll also ask you for your medical history, any prior surgeries or anything like that, mental health history, chemical dependency issues, like when did you first start drinking ever? How much did you drink? Do you have an alcohol issue now? Have you ever been to treatment before? Did you have what drugs have you tried? And they'll go through a whole list. Have you ever tried this, that, the other thing? And any problems with those drugs ever, either currently or before? Gambling history. And then they'll get into your employment history. Where have you worked? They'll have you sign releases of information so that they can send out and request records from different employers, records from prior educational institutions, your high school, any training you've had post-high school or education post-high school, college, things like that. Your prior criminal record, you can decline to answer those questions, but you should have a plan with your lawyer prior to going into that about whether that's something you want to talk about or not. Your financial situation, tax records, sometimes they'll ask for releases for those. Your current job, they'll ask for pay stubs for that. Any loans you've got out there, they'll have you fill out financial questionnaires as well. And you have to be truthful in these things or you can get in trouble for that as well. So they have you sign a bunch of releases for information and provide them with written documentation of other records that they're going to need. And they don't do that all in the interview. They'll have you sign these things and then gather that information either before or after the meeting as well. A lot of times they'll have probation come do a home visit to check out your home. They're not going to dig through your drawers or anything, but just to see what your living situation is like as you're going through the pre-sentence investigation phase of this, unless they've already done that because you've been on pretrial supervision or something like that. They're going to ask you for a collateral source that they can contact to verify some of what you're telling them. So you want to think ahead before about who's going to be a good collateral source for you, and your lawyer ought to, maybe give them a heads up that probation's going to be calling and asking some questions about you, and just to make sure that they're truthful in it as well, but make sure that they're pointing out things that are important that may be able to even help your case as you go to sentencing later on. Acceptance of responsibility. So this is where sometimes in a sentencing it can make a big difference, and why preparation is so important, right? Acceptance of responsibility can be done one of two ways, and that means admitting what conduct you've done that's you're guilty for. It's different than a plea. You've already done that by this time in the case, and maybe how you've hurt other people and what led up to you doing the crime. Okay, so you can do this either just right during the interview and talk about it, or a lot of times people want to do a written one where they write it, have the lawyer look at it, make sure it looks right. We don't write them for you. It's got to come from you, but we can give you some guidelines on what to write about and what to examine or think about more as you're writing this written acceptance of responsibility if you do it that way. Or we'll just talk to you about it before the interview and make sure that you're hitting on certain things in that acceptance of responsibility, because if a judge doesn't think, or probation doesn't think, that you're really accepting responsibility for it, you might get sentenced worse. Whereas if you have very good acceptance of responsibility, it may help your sentence go down as well. Okay. Once that's all done, that interview and probation gathers all these records that they've gotten both from you and from you signing releases of information, and they go out and get them from different places. Then probation's going to write that report, and that can take anywhere from a few weeks to a couple months. Once that initial draft of the report comes, that's called the preliminary PSR, sent to your lawyer. You get to go over it with your lawyer, and we get to know, is there anything wrong in there? Do we have any additions or changes to it that where the probation agent wrote it wrong, different than what you said by mistake or something? In addition to that, there's going to be a guideline calculation in it, and these are things that are first tried to be calculated by the lawyers, both the prosecution and the defense lawyer, if there's a plea agreement. But probation has to do their own calculation of the sentencing guidelines, and sometimes that differs from what the lawyers calculated to be for a variety of reasons. One, probation has more access to your criminal history than the lawyers do, especially than the defense lawyer in some situations. And second, sometimes they think that certain points ought to be added against you that the lawyers didn't want added against you. So they come up with their own calculations for the judge. And we have an opportunity, if we disagree with those calculations and we believe there's a good basis in the law for disagreeing with them, we can object to any of those calculations that we believe are wrong as well. We file those objections. Probation then considers those objections and other suggested changes we have to the report, if there are any, and then they issue the final PSR. The final PSR goes to the judge. That's what the judge gets to read and rely on at a sentencing. It's also sent to the lawyers, both the prosecution and defense lawyer, and we will begin to build our sentencing position paper off of that PSR. So we use that to start writing our position paper to advocate for you for the lowest sentence possible in the case. And that's how a PSR, pre-sentence report, works, and specifically how the pre-sentence report interview works. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, let me know, maybe in the comments, or give me a like. And if you found this information to be useful as well, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I like putting out information for people that can be helpful, just so they understand processes, know what their rights are, and can hopefully get you the best result in your case no matter what lawyer you have. Take care.